Hello, literacy enthusiasts, and welcome to LitFilmFest Live. I'm Tim Miles, here to make literacy engaging and purposeful with all of you guys. Well, first of all, I must welcome J. M. Joseph. Hello, J. M. Joseph. Welcome
Hello.
to
Hi, Tim.
the show tonight. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, and thank you for having me on. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure to have you. We are doing a bit of a giveaway tonight with you, Jay, aren't we? We are going to be giving 15 copies of your
Right.
new book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've brought?
Yeah, so I have 15 books. I'm really not too sure whether it's best for schools to get bundles of 3 or bundles of 5, however they want to do it. But I would imagine bundles of 3 for 5 different schools, if they're interested, might work out best. But I'll leave that up to you, Tim. You probably know them better than I. And so you can use it from group readers or libraries and schools, because we want to get children reading, and that's why I'm here.
That's fantastic. So, yep, if you want to enter the competition, please like the video and tag a teacher who you think is a superhero in your school. And we'll be sending 3 sets of 5 books out to 3 lucky winners to comment below. Just on last week as well, here are the winners of last week's competition. They'll be winning a copy of ABC Yoga, Little Mouse at the Zoo, which was a great book all about being mindful and also fiction at the same time. So well done, all of you people on the screen. What are you drinking tonight, Jay? What have you got with you?
Well, it's coffee now, beer as soon as we're finished, yes?
Yeah, that's it. Just chug it. Chug it back. Yes, yeah. That's it. Glass of wine for report writing season, though, isn't it? Tonight we are going to be discussing superhero fiction, and you've written your own superhero book, haven't you? From being a teacher, Jay, as well in the classroom. What was it that made you want to become an author, actually, from maybe being a teacher?
Well, I always wanted to be an author long before I wanted to be a teacher. I kind of fell into teaching, I think, a little bit by accident. I had, teaching children. I originally wanted to lecture at university, and it's just a very long story. But I've taught children as young as 3. I've been a tutor at university where I've had graduates, I've lectured, I've taught really every age level. And since for the last 15, 20 years, I'm mostly focused on key stage 1 and 2 and 3. So I've been mostly limited myself to primary. But wanting to write has always been something I felt was something I could do. And I've tried it for years and years. And a few years ago, I live in Bristol. I was fortunate enough to get onto the BATSPA's Creative Writing for Young People course, the MA, and that was the spur that got me writing. I think what changed it for me was every summer, like a lot of teachers, I used to go back to my attic or try and write something, but I never really shared it with people. And I think the difference was getting in workshops, taking your writing out to people, letting others see it, and getting feedback. And once you have an audience, that was the real spur. That's what really got me writing.
I think that's an interesting development. That there are lots of people out there who wouldn't mind just dipping their toes into being an author, who maybe are teachers, but maybe getting some help with that, like doing your MA was really useful for that. There's lots of short courses out there as well to support writers. So sharing that work was it quite scary to start with?
It was a cold bath, I'll tell you that much. I mean, you're so used to giving little smiles at the end of this. You don't get those at your workshop for the most part. It is. And I think as well, it was having deadlines where you're trying to just churn out the writing rather than just where you're always trying to make excuses, those sorts of parts, or doing it when you felt you had time. Where here it becomes more of a job, more of a chore, where you're just trying to get out, and you realize how much you can produce when you give yourselves timelines. And when you have, I think, a group of people. I mean, one of the big phenomena in recent times is these exercise groups. I mean, where I live, you constantly see people out in the downs and big groups of people doing exercise together. And I think that's because the group becomes a support, and you have your own rapport with them. The same thing happens with writing workshops in some ways. So I would recommend them if you can, particularly I know it's difficult now with COVID to do it in person, but if you can't do it in person, it really does help.
Yeah, great. And what kind of tips do you have, really, just off the back of writing a book? What would you say what the process was to write a book? What's that like for you?
Well, I think you have to be fair to yourself, first of all. One of the things about us, as if you want to be a writer, you are already a good reader. You've read lots of books. There's a lot of things you find inspiring. And the thing is, what you write those first few times isn't going to be that great. It isn't just going to pour off your pen. And you as a reader can see that. And I
Yeah.
think what you have to do is be a little bit charitable with yourself and realize it is an apprenticeship. And that's what writing is. You just have to put in the hours. You have to work on it. All right, yes, we know there are a few people, just like in sport or dance and art, who can just do it from a very early age. But for many of us, it's something you really just have to put the time in from the start. And I think that's it. So be charitable to yourself as one, and two is just keep at it.
Hard work and effort, eh? We've got a comment just come through. And did it take longer to write the book because you were so busy teaching in school?
Yeah, well, I did take time off to do the MA, so I took 1 day off a week. So I dropped down to 0.8, maybe to 0.7 to do it, because I needed to do it for 1 day, and that helped quite a bit. I'm still teaching now. I've got a contract to write 3 books with Hachette, and I'm still teaching about 0.5, 0.6 now. So I've dropped down a bit because I can kind of afford it. And I've been teaching a long time. I'm 58 now, so I've been at it quite a while. But yeah, I think you need a little bit of time off to do it, or some sort of, and my children have grown, so I don't have the childcare responsibilities that I did years ago. But everyone's different. I am a very slow writer. I would often be in these workshop groups with people who would just fill a notebook, and it would be quite intimidating. You just kind of go, oh, what should I begin with, a the or a? And they're just running off with it. So I think everyone's different, and as best you can is to try and find some time for yourself each day or most days of the week where you can carry on with it.
It's funny. I definitely say I was the opposite way. So I am the person who has ideas and inspiration, but it takes me a lot to pin something down. So I don't have that slow, methodical way of writing. I'm the brainstormer, of the group. But writing a paragraph, sitting down and doing that is something I really have to really put a lot of energy into. So from all that inspiration, Jay, why did you decide your debut novel to be about superheroes?
Well, I think powers are quite interesting. It's something I used to love comics as a boy. I read where I grew up in the kind of golden age of Marvel Comics, and I always said what I used to like about comics though wasn't really the real great superpowers. I used to like the little things. I used to like Superman, like heating up his soup with his heat ray vision, or wondering how did he cut his hair if he's indestructible? What kind of how does he do that? How does he cut his fingernails? I'm assuming they didn't put a grooming kit into that rocket, when he went from, I forget the name of it now, wherever. Yeah, I landed on Earth. So how did he do these things? It would be those parts of life always interested me. So when I wrote it, it was less about finding the powers as being a huge advantage. In some respects, they're a disadvantage of trying to make your life work with it. And it's just the fun aspect for it, really. I think that was the appeal too.
I think that's a nice kind of thought, that when you write novels that are based on escapism, this fictional universe, there's a real open playing field to play with ideas, isn't there? That the world really is your oyster. A lot of people find that quite freeing, and particularly children. Their ideas are flowing, aren't they? When you say let's talk about superheroes and what kind of powers you can have, that's something you often won't find like a creative block on, really. So yeah, I can see.
No, it's always a good opening question. You ask children what superpower they like, and a lot of them say invisible. And you go, well, you want to be invisible. You got to take your kit off to be invisible because your clothes don't go with you. So you're kind of restricting yourself to warm climates, right? If you want this to work, it's those aspects for it that are quite fun. And they always have some fun ideas. What would be the first thing they would do if they did have superpowers, super strengths, and things like that. So I think it's that aspect which is a bit of fun.
Fantastic. And we just had a comment from Joy, who says that she loved the quiz introduction to the the book, and we're going to get into that, aren't we? We'll read part of your extract, and she said it made her chuckle, especially the comments after the last question. What made you think to write an introduction in this way? And she thinks that's a really cracking hook for a reader. I think she's right there.
Well, I can give you the long answer or the short answer. The long answer was I was nearing the end of my MA, and I went on a date with an agent. I went to the literary festival in Dublin, and I was there across from an agent, and she read you have to produce at BATSPA, you have to produce a manuscript of 30,000 original words, 30 to 40,000 original words, and which can't be marked by the tutor, so there's usually quite a lot to it. And I had nearly all that written. I did it part-time over 2 years. And so I took her an excerpt from it to her, and she read it, and she said, well, listen, this is just competent. And she said, it's good, but it's nothing special about it. And she told us that she gets well over 1,000 manuscripts a year, and what she needs is for the voice to jump out to her. And I remember going back to where I was staying in Dublin, lying there on the bed and thinking, oh, and I knew in my heart of hearts, I knew she was right, that I was just trying to please someone. I thought really seriously about what I wanted to do, and I thought, what fiction I really liked was always metafiction. From whether it was from Ferris Bueller to Fleabag, when they talk to you as a reader, that was the stuff I always liked. And they kind of jump, Tristram Shandy, The World According to Garp, Don Quixote. Those are the books I used to love as well as a student and then as a kid when they spoke to you. And of course, comics used to do it occasionally too, and they broke that fourth window. And so I thought, well, that's how I'm going to do. And I actually went back and I wrote the quiz right from the very start. And I mean, I know it's not like the start of The Hobbit or anything, but I actually wrote that first, and that's pretty much stayed the same. I had no idea where the rest of the book was going, but I had the quiz from the start, and I thought that was the voice, and it actually is. That's what got me a contract from an agent. Really was the opening to that in the first chapter.
Interesting, yeah. And when I read it as well, it really stopped and made me think, and I had to just scroll down a bit. Have I got the right document here? Am I reading the first chapter? And it was, and as I went through it, slowly made a bit more sense. So instantly I was hooked, and it was one from maybe puzzlement to start with, and then oh, I get it. This is breaking the fourth wall. This is not something I'd expect, and you want to read more. You're hooked from an opening and quiz at the start of a fiction novel, and from the very beginning. Yeah. So
well, I think as well for myself as a teacher, a lot of the children I taught or I knew used to read a lot of like Diary of the Wimpy Kids and those sorts of books, and they're having a hard time making the jump up to reading just prose. And so I thought what I wanted to do with my book was, I know I couldn't illustrate it. What I wanted to do was make the text interesting. And so that's one of the reasons why I've got a lot of excerpts and changed around and lists and things like that. And I thought if I could do that, it would be a bridge for them to get on to where they're reading just text. And that's what I wanted to make the text.
So a good intermediate then. Is that how you wrote it? Fantastic.
Yeah, and it's also one of the reasons why I've tried to keep the chapters short and punchy, to get readers, to make it an accessible read, and fun and more kind of conversational, because as you know, you don't want conversations to drag on. You want to get right to the point quick. So that's what I try to do with each chapters.
Great. And you also include a lot of mystery in your writing. Why did you choose that to be the case? So there's this, just to kind of add a bit of context to that, there's a package that turns up on the main protagonist's doorstep at the start. Well, there's a package at the door, isn't there? We don't know what it is, and that's like a huge hook, really, at the start. Why did you choose to include those elements?
Well, I think it's a lot of suspense as well. And going back to comic books, they always jumped around a bit, and you would find out and if you're thinking about it if you start off on your February issue, in your May issue, you'd find out why that was important early on. You find the same things in a lot of TV serials now, don't you? You have that very early seeds. Why is that important? It comes out a bit later. So I wanted to keep that kind of going. And also it's because my main character, Aiden, is the whole idea is that it's the idea is that these powers are of their nature, so they express something about themselves. And because he's fire and he's spontaneous, but he's also means his mind jumps around quite a bit too. So he's not really following a lot of this to begin. So a lot of these mysteries kind of bite him on the bum a bit, I suppose, by the best way of looking at it. And oh yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, how did that come about? Now, where you're not really thinking about it. And because he's just enthusiastic and he just kind of runs off, and then it's usually his friends who rope him back, or his mom or someone else who goes, well, yeah, where did this come from?
Yeah, lesson learned. That's right.
Yes.
Just before we move on to our next section, our quick fire fiction corner, what are you reading now? What other books do you think people will enjoy at home?
Well, I mix a lot of adult fiction with children's fiction. So I just finished reading The Nickel Boys. I thought that was brilliant by Colson Whitehead. That's what I just put down. I know Kirsty Applebaum. I've read True Friend and Midler. I think she's writing.
Oh, very good. Yeah, we interviewed her a few months ago.
Yeah, I love True Friends. I thought that was really. I love the Midler as well. So I really enjoyed her. Lark. By Anthony McGowan's fantastic. You talk about voices, and there you have it right there. I suppose I'm a big fan of Maggie O'Farrell too, so I loved Hamlet. That was my other book I would say I would read.
Brilliant. Some great suggestions there. Definitely check some of those out. Thanks, Jay. Right, it's that time of the interview where we will take this part of the interview so that you can purposely watch it tomorrow in your class if you want to on YouTube. This is also being streamed to our YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. You can find this video on that channel. It's the quick. I've twisted my tongues. I've had that beer too early, Jay. It's before the interview. That's give me a bit of courage. It's the quick fire fiction time. Okay, so we are going to dive into some of your book here, the first chapter, Jay, if that's okay. So you're going to read it in a minute, and then we'll ask some questions to develop an understanding of how your writing works to you as the professional, as the author. And then we'll also be releasing this part of the interview as a classroom resource on our website, litfilmfest.com, at some part in the future. So keep your eyes peeled. Okay, Jay, over to you.
Super. Well, I will read the quiz and the first chapter follows. The quiz doesn't take very long. So, Fireboy. A quiz. You are handed a box marked top secret. The box is addressed to you. Do you A, rip it open, or B, wait for your parents to come home before unwrapping it? If you'd answered A, proceed to the next question. If you answered B, start again. The correct answer is A. Inside the box, you find a jar of sweets and an information booklet. The sweets are labeled Nature's Own and smell of peppermint. The information book is 48 pages long. Do you A, open the jar of sweets, or B, read page after boring page from the booklet? If you answered A, proceed to the final question. If you answered B, take a deep breath and read question 2 again, then answer A. 3. You discover the sweets unleash a molecular chain reaction. It results in you developing extraordinary powers. Do you A, run amok, cause havoc at school and join the circus, or B, master your power, dedicate yourself to a life of public service, become the warrior hero our world so desperately needs? If you answered A, read on. If you answered B, seriously? B again? It seems you haven't yet twigged how this quiz works. The correct answer is A. No one masters a power from the off. But do not worry, my friend. Help is waiting for you within these very pages. So carry on and pay close attention. My name is Aidan Sweeney, and I am Fireboy. Special delivery. It began with a doorbell. I was not long in from school. Lemon was curled beside me on the sofa, one white paw tucked under her chin, her tail flung lazily over a cushion. The two of us had the room to ourselves. Mum wouldn't be home for ages, and Granny was in her room, snoring like a bear. That was when the doorbell buzzed. Lemon yawned and rolled over. I sat up. It buzzed again. This time, a voice from the intercom followed it. I have a special delivery for an A. Sweeney. A. Sweeney? A special delivery for me? The voice spoke again. I need you to sign for it. I bolted off the sofa, hurtled the stool, and skidded to a halt in the doorway. I'll be right down, I yelled into the speaker. Fizzing with excitement, I ran into the hall and pressed the button for the lift. And yet, it was hard not to be suspicious. Who could have sent me a parcel? No one had mentioned a present to me, and my birthday wasn't until May. As I rode down to the ground floor, I mulled over the possibilities and weighed their odds. Mum. Unlikely. Mum believed in rewards, not surprises. None of my most recent accomplishments, coming third in the longest spit contest, or beating Hussein not once but twice at FIFA on his own Xbox, fell into her achievement category. Granny. Hardly. Granny didn't do presents. Granny gave orders. She issued threats and restricted privileges. She handed out punishments like they were fairy cakes at a party. Granny buying me a present? Not a chance. Mitchell Mulch, the favorite. This fell into the it's a trick category. Could Mitchell Mulch be hiding in the bushes with a super soaker double pump AK-47 attack gun? Very possibly. This delivery person in the surrounding area must be approached with great caution. Or was it my lucky day? The long shot. Fingers crossed. I burst into the lobby and spotted a thin man in cycling shorts outside the glass partition. He had a deliverable box strapped to his back and a smallish parcel in one hand. A bicycle leaned against the wall behind him. My heart went pitter-patter, pitter-patter. This was no trick. This was real. I rushed to the door and opened it. I'm Aiden Sweeney. We spoke on the intercom. The delivery man frowned. Instead of handing me the parcel, he pulled it away. I was expecting someone older. I made myself as tall as I could, which, in fairness, wasn't very tall. I happen to be much older than I look, my good man, I said in a deep voice. If you check the box, you'll discover that is my name on the label. I don't know, he said, scratching his chin uncertainly. Do you have any ID? Just this, I said. Removing one of my trainers, I showed him its heel, where the name A. Sweeney was written in a black marker. He held the trainer gingerly, his nose wrinkling. Guess that'll do, he shrugged. Here. I scratched my name across his electronic pad, and he handed me the package. It was an odd-shaped lump wrapped in brown paper. Postmarks blotted one corner, and rows of blue airmail stickers crowded another. One stamp showed a lawman profile. The second, 2 ponies on a grassy mountaintop. The handwriting I didn't recognize, a scrawl of loops in purple biro. But the address was mine. Alexandra Apartments, London, N1. Do you know who sent this? I asked the delivery man, but when I looked up, he had already cycled away. In his place was a girl in a maroon blazer and straw boater. Sadie was home. And that is the end of chapter 1.
Oh, that's a shame. I really liked the protagonist's voice in that. There was a lot of it was just dripping with sarcasm at times. Real character. I can see how you've written them.
Yes, it's interesting writing from his point of view and trying to see the world like that, where you think from Aiden's point of view, there isn't going to be a lot of description of the sky and scenery, is there? It's just going to be more about people and what's in front of them. So.
Fantastic. Okay, Jay, are you ready for the quick fire fiction questions?
I'll do my best.
Okay, good. You've had your coffee. You're ready for it.
Yes, I'm ready.
Can you summarize the text in a single sentence for me?
Matilda meets the X-Men. Yeah, how's that? My punchline. Yeah.
Oh, is that how you sold the book in the pitch meeting?
It's how my agent did. I don't know about me. I just kind of handed it to her.
That is an elevator pitch and a half. Yeah. Well, not and a half. That is a succinct elevator pitch. Which words would you use to describe the text?
I think if you look at that "you" at the very start, it's the very first word in the book. You are you, and I think that's really, in some ways, describes it. It's about trying to make us. Aiden is talking to the reader a lot of it as his friend, and I think that's what it's meant to be. It's about us sharing my story with someone, kind of putting an arm around him, or having a chat and telling him a bit about it, and that's really what's the mood of the story is. Yeah, 2 mates talking about something they did.
it's like friendship and camaraderie, isn't it? A lot of it, as this trio try to work out a lot of what's going on together in this, or what's happening, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Which words change the mood of the text?
I suppose sweets in many respects, because it's going to be sweets which engineers this whole idea. I like the idea because it seemed a bit of a cliche having sweets which are somehow magical, but I wanted to make them a little bit different. So I actually enjoy that idea of playing around it and making them some bit serious. So sweets are going to be very important in this.
I think there's something dangerous about getting sweets from a stranger anyway, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like sweets are so innocent, aren't they? Like as a tool and to use in writing. But there's something slightly dangerous, and that's what's interesting, isn't it, about sweets in the post from.
Well, that's why I put on the bottom of the label, these sweets are safe to eat. So there we go. So unless it says that, don't eat them. Yeah.
Fine. Totally
That's
explained away.
One suggested by the editor, and it went. Yes.
And we talked a bit about the quiz at the start. How else did you structure part of the text?
Well, as I said a little bit earlier, what I wanted to do is try and make the actual text exciting. So it's got a lot of lists. It has excerpts from different texts. It's got little bits of video transcribed. There's bits of dialogue. There's bits of conversation. So I wanted to make that a part of it. Even though it's not going to be illustrations, I wanted to make the words interesting, because it is really about chatting and metafiction and this talking to you. So I wanted us to kind of look at the idea. I mean, the idea is that Aiden is writing this story, hence I wanted to make a reflection on what writing is. So there's a bit of scripts in it. There's a list. There's all sorts of different things put in. So I've structured it that way to make it interesting and fun, and tell the story at the same time.
Yeah. I think a lot of people wouldn't think of, if you write a traditional story, you say, wow, I filled a whole page with text. Wow, that's amazing. But actually, you want to keep them interested, don't you? So to have lists and texts and diary entries, etc., does change. It breaks up the monotonous blocks of text that form paragraphs, doesn't it? So
yes, it has. There's a kind of repeated phrase of 4 phrases, which in no particular order, which describes someone, and so you've got these like lists, almost in bullet points going down around, and it actually is kind of clear way of getting your story over in a very succinct manner.
Great. Have you used any interesting language techniques when writing?
In terms of language, I suppose it is really trying to restrict myself to, because I read a lot of, particularly at Bat Spa, you have some wonderful writers who really stretch language sometimes when they write. I was fortunate enough to have Julia Green as my tutor, and you can see that in so many of her stories. But for me, I thought actually I have to tone that down. I really wanted to stay true to my point of view as best I can, and not use a whole lot of adult language to describe it as best I can. So I watered mine down a good bit as best I can, and try to talk without using slang, but in words and terms which I thought a reasonably well-read 12-year-old boy would use.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you want it to be a little bit above anyway, don't you? Just to push them up to that level. And sometimes you can just work out what those words mean from the context, don't you? So
yeah.
How do you want the text to make people feel?
I want them to laugh. That's it, straight out. It's a comedy. It's just there to make you laugh. There are a lot of funny scenes in it, actually, and it is funny. I'm not. You read David Solomon, and My Brother's a Superhero, and there one-liner, punchline. It's funny. My humor comes mostly from character, and it is fun. There are some funny scenes in it, and hopefully it'll make people laugh.
Fantastic. It definitely came out in your reading as well. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay. I really enjoyed having you on.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Great. I just wanted to share with you something that has been sent into me on Facebook. And this is something given in by Jacob. He did our series of writing challenges under lockdown, and he's actually produced his own book, which is amazing, isn't it? From the pandemic. Yeah, really great. So they approached a publisher that they knew, just if they could get a few copies made, and they've managed it, which is absolutely brilliant. And that was taking off of some of the projects that we were working with them with. So I just want to say well done, Jacob. That's really impressive.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, that's his debut novel.
Yeah, amazing.
He's beaten you. He's beaten you, Jay.
He beat me by quite a stretch, actually. Yeah, quite a stretch.
Thank you, Jay, for joining us. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Cheers. All the best. Thank you very much, Tim. All the best to everyone out there.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
And also, don't forget to enter our competition that we've put together tonight with Jay and Hachette publishers. Just like the video and tag a teacher underneath who you think is a superhero, and you have the potential to win 5 sets of 3 books. That's what we decided, I think, Jay, wasn't it? T's and C's apply, and they are all written in the description below. Also, don't forget to check out our resources online, litfilmfest.com, where we have lots of resources and projects that help make literacy engaging and purposeful. That's our main aim. Just give it a gander. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.